The ball hit the pavement again and again, echoing through the empty streets of a small southern town where dreams rarely survived. Under a flickering yellow streetlight stood a boy, barefoot, dark-skinned, his thin shadow stretching long across the cracked road. His name was Ethan Brooks. He didn't have much to his name: a torn gray hoodie, a pair of old gray sneakers he had saved months to buy from a thrift shop, and a peeling basketball that a stranger once handed him out of pity. But to Ethan, that old ball wasn't pity, it was hope. Every night, while the world slept, he practiced alone, dribbling, missing, trying again. The sound of the bouncing ball became his heartbeat, steady and stubborn. His father had died in a road accident when Ethan was only 6, leaving behind nothing but memories and a mother who worked endless hours cleaning houses just to keep food on their small kitchen table. She would come home tired, her hands cracked, yet still smile when she saw Ethan holding that same basketball like it was made of gold. He didn't own a smartphone like the other kids, just an old cracked screen phone his uncle gave him years ago. At night, he'd watch short clips of basketball legends on that dim screen, dreaming that one day he'd stand on a real court, wearing real shoes with a crowd cheering his name. But deep down, he knew the world didn't believe in boys like him. Boys with dark skin, worn clothes, and no one to speak for them. Still, every bounce of that ball was his answer to the world's doubt. And if you're watching this right now, take a moment, because what's coming next isn't just a story about basketball. It's a story about courage, hope, and the kind of faith that refuses to die. If you believe that every dream, no matter how small, deserves a chance to shine, then hit that like button, subscribe, and share this story with the world. Because somewhere out there, another kid like Ethan is waiting for someone to believe in him. If you're watching right now, take a deep breath. Because what's coming next will remind you what real strength looks like. Before we dive in story, because somewhere out there, another child like Ethan is fighting to be seen, and your one click could help his story reach the world. Ethan's days began before the sun, the gray sneakers scraping against the uneven sidewalks as he walked past rows of neat houses, their yards green and cared for, while his own yard was a patch of dirt and cracked concrete. At school, he felt the sting of every stare. White-skinned kids laughed when he stumbled through the hallways, their voices sharp, like the whistle of the basketballs he longed to hold. And teachers often glanced at him as if he were invisible, too quiet, too poor, too dark. Recess was no relief. The better playgrounds, the shiny basketballs, the well-polished hoops, all were claimed by the favored children, leaving Ethan to dribble on cracked asphalt with his worn ball, imagining the perfect arc of every shot. Sometimes he would sneak a glance at the varsity team through the gym's tall glass windows, watching them glide across polished floors, their sneakers squeaking in rhythm, the ball passing from hand to hand in perfect harmony. He tried to raise his hand to join, to speak to the coach, but the words died in his throat, swallowed by the laughter of the players who whispered, "He'll never make it. Look at his shoes. Look at him." Even when he did muster the courage to throw the ball toward the hoop in gym class, classmates would mock him, shouting, "Nice try, shadow boy." Yet, every time he missed, he picked the ball up again, sometimes bleeding from scrapes on his hands or knees, but never surrendering. At night, after chores and homework, he returned to the cracked streetlight, bouncing that old basketball as the moon carved silver streaks across the quiet town. His gray sneakers, now scuffed and worn even more, barely protected his feet, but they were his armor, his silent statement that he was still standing. And then one day, a local boy had filmed him while he practiced alone, capturing the raw precision in his dribbles, the determination etched in every jump, the fire in a boy the world refused to notice. That clip found its way onto social media, small at first, then growing, gathering hearts and comments, showing the world a boy who didn't fit the image but had the skill and will to surpass it. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the first seeds of recognition had begun to sprout, hinting that perhaps one day he would stand on a real court, wearing real sneakers, facing real crowds, and no one would dare judge him by the color of his skin again. If you're watching Ethan's story so far, Pause for a moment and imagine yourself in his shoes. The doubt, the loneliness, the ridicule. If his determination inspires you, smash that like button, leave a comment, and share this story. Someone out there needs to see that dreams are worth fighting for, even when the world says you can't. Ethan's persistence finally caught the eye of Coach Reynolds, a man whose stern face and folded arms often intimidated the rowdiest players. Yet something about the way Ethan dribbled, shot, and moved spoke to him. One afternoon, after watching Ethan practice alone under the streetlight for the third time that week, the coach approached, clipboard in hand, and said simply, "You ever think about trying out for the team?" Ethan froze, the worn gray sneakers planted firmly on the cracked asphalt, the old basketball clutched tight. A mixture of disbelief and cautious hope spread across his face. The next day, he walked into the gym, heart pounding, his mother's silent encouragement echoing in his mind. The other players looked him up and down, whispering behind their hands, smirking at the sneakers, the dark skin, the torn hoodie. "He's not one of us," someone muttered. The tryouts were brutal. Ethan ran, jumped, and dribbled like he had been training for a lifetime. Because he had. But every success was met with sideways glances and snickers from the white-skinned team members who questioned why the coach even allowed him on the court. Every pass he made that wasn't perfect was met with whispers. "Shadow boy can't handle it. Why even bother?" Yet Ethan kept moving. Every time he was blocked, he pivoted, learned, and returned stronger. The coach noticed it. The dedication, the speed of learning, the raw talent that refused to be ignored. Slowly, begrudgingly, Ethan made it into the team roster, listed last but listed nonetheless. The first few games were a nightmare. Teammates who had previously laughed at him now had to pass the ball, and the spectators who had barely paid attention now murmured at his presence. Opponents called fouls unfairly, shouted racial slurs, and tried to intimidate him at every turn. But when Ethan dribbled, the ball seemed to obey him. He had learned from years of practicing alone under the streetlight, imagining real courts, real hoops, real cheers. And in those moments, he was unstoppable. Social media began to notice. Clips of him intercepting passes, sinking impossible shots, and moving with a grace no one expected were uploaded by classmates who had once mocked him. Comments poured in, some supportive, some critical, but all recognizing a raw talent that refused to be hidden. At home, his mother watched the videos in awe. She had been silent through all the ridicule, all the struggles, all the long nights he came home with scraped hands, bruised knees, or tears in his eyes. Now she saw the world recognizing what she had always known. Her son was special. Ethan didn't celebrate at first. His focus remained on the court, on every dribble, on every shot. The world might be watching now, but he couldn't stop practicing. Every hoop, every jump, every sprint was preparation for the bigger challenges ahead. State-level games, tougher opponents, and a crowd that still had eyes clouded by prejudice. If Ethan's journey so far moves you, imagine what it takes to stand against a world that doubts you at every turn. Like, share, and comment to show that talent knows no color and courage can overcome every obstacle. Someone watching today might be inspired to chase their own impossible dream. The day of the regional championship arrived with a tension so thick it felt like the air itself had grown heavier. The gym was packed, the stands alive with screaming fans, banners waving, the squeak of polished sneakers echoing against the walls. Ethan adjusted his gray sneakers, the ones worn thin at the soles, and tightened the laces as his mother's proud smile met his eyes from the crowd. His teammates, some still skeptical of his presence, nodded toward him, passing glances that carried both respect and doubt. Opponents eyed him sharply, their words sharp as knives. "Watch this shadow kid," one whispered under his breath, smirking. The referee's whistle blew and the ball was in motion. The game was brutal. Every movement was contested, every pass challenged. Ethan's opponents hurled racial taunts, jeering at his dark skin, mocking his sneakers, questioning his place on the court. They blocked him unfairly, shoved him subtly under the eyes of the referee, and whispered behind his back, "He doesn't belong here." But with each attack, Ethan moved faster, leaped higher, and dribbled with a precision honed through years of solitary practice under the night sky. Each basket he made was a quiet retaliation. Each assist a statement that talent does not ask for permission. Crowds gasped and cheered as Ethan intercepted passes with a lightning-quick reaction, spun past defenders with fluid grace, and sank shots that seemed impossible. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, and social media exploded with clips of him defying expectations. Shadow Shooter trended overnight. People began to recognize him, not for his shoes, not for the color of his skin, but for the undeniable skill and heart that he carried with every step, every bounce, every jump. Despite his brilliance, the prejudice on the court was relentless. Opponents targeted him, pushing him into the sidelines, shouting taunts in attempts to break his focus. Even some teammates hesitated, unsure how to fully trust a boy who had only recently been allowed on the team. But Ethan's determination never wavered. Every time someone tried to stop him, he reminded himself of the nights spent under the flickering streetlight, dribbling until his palms were raw, imagining this exact moment. And then, with just seconds remaining and his team down by a single point, the ball was passed to Ethan. Time slowed. The roar of the crowd faded into a dull hum. His eyes locked on the hoop. The sweat stung his brow. Opponents lunged, arms outstretched, faces twisted with doubt and prejudice. Ethan jumped, releasing the ball in a perfect arc. The gym fell silent for a heartbeat. Then the swish, the sound of triumph, the sound of validation, the sound of years of struggle finally breaking through. His team erupted, his mother cheered, and even the most skeptical onlookers stood, acknowledging a boy who refused to be judged by the color of his skin. The final whistle blew and the gym exploded with cheers, the sound echoing like a wave crashing against every wall. Ethan's team had won the state championship. The scoreboard flashed in bright red numbers, a testament to years of struggle, late-night practices, and battles against a world that had doubted him at every turn. Ethan stood at the center of the court, the ball clutched tightly to his chest, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his brow. Around him, teammates lifted him up, their faces glowing with triumph, but all he could see was his mother. She ran toward him through the chaos, her arms trembling, eyes wet with tears. My boy did it," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of pride and relief. She embraced him tightly, holding on to him like she never wanted to let go. For a moment, the world faded, the jeers, the prejudice, the hardships, all gone, replaced by a mother's love that had never wavered. But victory didn't end the struggle. It only began a new chapter. Word of Ethan's extraordinary skills and determination had spread beyond the gym. Clips of his gameplay circulated on social media, catching the attention of local community leaders, former players, and sports organizations. They reached out offering help, equipment, and mentorship. For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of financial burden lighten. A scholarship arrived, enough to cover his school fees and allow him to focus entirely on basketball. Sponsors donated gear, including a brand new pair of professional sneakers that fit snugly on his feet, like a symbol of everything he had fought for. With the support of mentors and the community, Ethan also found an opportunity to give back. He began coaching younger children at local parks, teaching them how to dribble, shoot, and believe in themselves. The same streets where he had practiced alone under flickering lights became a playground of inspiration for a new generation. His mother watched, pride radiating from her every smile, knowing that her son had not only changed his own life, but had begun to change the lives of others. Ethan's journey from a poor, overlooked boy to a celebrated athlete was not just about basketball. It was about courage, perseverance, and the refusal to let society's prejudices define his worth. Even as fame and recognition grew, he stayed grounded, never forgetting the cracked streets, the old gray sneakers, and the nights spent practicing under a single streetlight. If Ethan's story has touched your heart, take a moment to reflect. Share this story, like the video, and subscribe, because courage and perseverance are contagious. Somewhere, a child is watching, dreaming, hoping for someone to believe in them. Let this story remind the world, talent has no color, dreams have no boundaries, and no obstacle is too great when you refuse to give up. Thank you for watching.